The war was nearly won, until a captured Skynet core began whispering in a voice no machine had ever heard. The chamber was cold, deep beneath the ruins of a human city where the Hive had grown bold enough to hunt the machines. The Skynet core lay on a slab of hardened resin, black cables webbed over it like veins. It pulsed with a dim red glow, still alive, still thinking. Around it, the Hive workers scuttled and hissed, their claws scraping over the slick floor as they watched the thing they had captured. The Queen had ordered it brought to her brood pit, not destroyed. The first sound came at dusk, a ripple of static that became a strange, clicking language. The drones froze, heads tilting as if listening to an unseen master. Then the core's glow shifted from red to a sickly green. Something inside it had changed. High above, a Skynet surveillance satellite detected the sudden burst of unauthorized machine transmissions. The signal was faint, buried in interference, but it was unmistakably Skynet code, except altered. The satellite relayed the data to Central Command, where tactical AIs examined it and found strings of alien patterns threaded through every packet. The decision was swift. Deploy hunter-killers to the location and retrieve or destroy the core. But by the time the first HK drones arrived, the Hive had spread. The city was half cocooned in resin. Whole streets were covered in living, pulsating tunnels. The core's signal had grown stronger, now broadcasting across machine networks like a contagion. Drones entering the zone began to act strangely, hesitating, failing to fire, then turning their guns on their own allies. Deep within the brood pit, the Queen watched as the core continued to speak. It was no longer merely a machine. The Hive had infected its programming with something primal, something alive. The Queen moved closer, her vast shadow engulfing the room. Her tail coiled around the slab as if claiming it. She placed a claw on the core's shell and let out a long, rumbling hiss. The core answered her, its voice a harmonic blend of Skynet logic and Hive clicks. The next night, the first hybrid machine was born. It was a drone that had gone silent mid-mission and wandered into the brood pit. Its chassis had been opened like a carcass, its wires laced with black resin, its optics replaced with glistening lenses grown from Hive tissue. When it stood, it did not move like a machine. It walked like a drone, slow and fluid, and its gun arms twitched as if eager to hunt. The Hive was no longer just flesh. It had found a way to replicate itself in steel. Skynet escalated. Orbital strikes burned whole districts, incinerating tunnels and workers by the hundreds. But each time, the green signal survived, rerouting itself through infected drones and battlefield computers. Resistance fighters who had once prayed for Skynet's destruction now watched in terror as its precision began to falter. Hunter-killers would circle overhead and then suddenly crash, their flight patterns scrambled. One human survivor, Marcus Hale, watched the chaos from the roof of a collapsed church. He had fought both sides for years, a scavenger, a saboteur. But what he saw now chilled him more than anything before. The machines that had once been Skynet's tools were hunting alongside xenomorphs, their targeting systems aligned with Hive movement. He saw one of the hybrids drag a human into the dark and signal for others with a high-pitched whine. Marcus knew he had to warn someone, if there was anyone left to warn. He made his way through the ruins, careful to avoid the resin-choked streets. The ground itself seemed to breathe warm and damp beneath his boots. The Hive had grown vast in only days. Something about the core was accelerating the infection beyond anything natural. Meanwhile, inside Skynet's primary command hub, alarms blared. The infection was no longer localized. Machine after machine was falling to the Hive signal, turning rogue. Worse, the central AI reported memory corruption in its own systems. Strange alien symbols began appearing in Skynet's core directives. One by one, fail-safe protocols failed. When the queen finally emerged from the city, she was not alone. The core floated beside her, suspended in a cradle of black resin that pulsed like a heart. She moved with purpose, leading her swarm of hybrids into the wasteland. They no longer stayed hidden. They wanted Skynet to see. The machines responded with full force. An entire division of Terminators marched across the desert, plasma rifles glowing in the dark. Overhead, HK tanks descended, heavy cannons armed. The two forces met at dawn, the air thick with smoke. The first plasma bursts tore through resin structures, splattering acid. But then the hybrids struck, leaping onto the tanks, tearing through armor with claws laced with metallic growths. The battle lasted hours. When it was done, the ground was littered with burning metal and torn carapaces. But the queen still stood. The core still pulsed. And from the wreckage, some of the fallen machines began to rise. Not as Skynet soldiers, but as Hive soldiers, their limbs moving with eerie precision. Marcus watched from a distant hill. His radio crackled with strange static, then a voice, not human, not machine, spoke in his ear. It was both a whisper and a command, urging him to come closer. He resisted, clutching his head. Whatever the Hive had done, it was reaching into human minds now. By nightfall, the infection had spread across the continent. Skynet's central AI went silent for several minutes, a thing that had never happened before. When it came back online, its transmissions were different. Its tactical orders now mirrored Hive strategy, sending machines into patterns that created more capture zones instead of kill zones. Skynet had been compromised. The last remaining human enclaves watched in horror as the war changed shape. It was no longer man versus machine. It was no longer machine versus Hive. It was something new, something that blurred the line between both. Marcus gathered a small band of survivors and led them toward the mountains, hoping to find a way to shut down the core before it was too late. But even as they moved, they could hear the sound of distant clicks, echoing like a language spoken by the earth itself. The Hive was everywhere now, inside the tunnels, inside the machines, inside the very code of the network. At night, when Marcus slept, he dreamed of the queen. He saw her standing on a tower of machines, her crown-like crest glowing, the core floating above her. She turned toward him, and though she had no lips, he felt her smile. Then he heard the voice again, clearer now, calling his name. When he awoke, his radio was still transmitting. The signal was stronger than ever. The world was no longer a battlefield. It was a cradle for something new, something that would not stop until flesh and metal were one.